right. All right, man. Sounds like a plan, man. Yeah, man. About to get on the mic, man. About to wreck the mic there, baby. Oh, yes, sir. You know what? Now the mic's freaking picking up everything. All right, cool. Righto. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so just so folks are not tripping, I am talking to Pat Lopez. I'm not talking to myself, so.
Time for another episode of Cap Casualties Podcast. Now here are two guys that were traded away from Houston long before it became fashionable. It's Patrick Lopez.
Here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence.
And Rod English.
I've got the style and profile like never before. Woo!
What? Greetings and salutations. It's
As
another
always.
episode of the Cap Casualties Podcast. I am Patrick Lopez. There I am on the screen. I'm Patrick Lopez. With me, as always, mi compadre of nearly 3 decades, the notorious R.O.D. But for those of you that know him as the notorious R.O.D., you may know him as Rod English. Rod, how's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty good here, Pat. Good to be in the land of the living. Pardon my background. My wife bought me a nice little green screen setup for my birthday. My birthday was a couple of weeks ago, and I told her that, hey, look, I had this thing figured out, and yeah, that didn't go so well. So I'm making a little upgrades on the lighting and whatnot. I got a couple of umbrellas going on here and everything. So yeah, I'm trying to grow up a little bit here.
You're trying to get into the 2021 era of streaming. Next thing, guys, he's going to be sitting in a hot tub and asking for, like, going on Twitch, sitting in a hot tub doing streams and asking for donations, trying on bikinis. I mean, that's the era we're in with online entertainment, guys. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? We got to do what we got to do to make an extra buck here. We got bills to pay. We got retirements to pay for. Some of us have beach houses. We have visioned in our goal in the very near future. Like we want to be able to hit all that and to get that goodness. Like, hey man, we don't play professional sports. Obviously, we don't, because we would, if we would be at our age, done with in our early 40s, we'd be done with sports at this point. Then that would mean we'd probably be on on ESPN or Fox News saying some nonsense like Chris Sims does and Emmanuel Acho do, guys like that. We would be out there making mad bank doing that after our careers were done. So we wouldn't need to scrape money to buy a beach house. We'd have like 6 or 7 beach houses. We'd have honestly, if we were professional athletes, based on just keeping up with the scorecards here, we would have like 80,000 kids each. I mean, that's just pretty much how it runs in professional sports, right? All that aside, it's great to be back, Rod.
Likewise, man. Likewise, man.
So usually, in the past, when we used to do this podcast, we would kind of create a basic outline of what we wanted to talk about any of the big news that's come out, or, I think the main thing for us, Rod, is when we used to do this weekly, it was a lot harder for me because I'd probably, as an OCD person, would get very frustrated from the content, because we would sit there, work our butts off, record, talk about upcoming games, and then, by the time it's out there, either some of the games have started and finished already, or by the time people would pick it up on the weekend, they would, the scores would be out there already. So it was just like, kind of like, yeah, what's the point of listening to that content? So for me, it's not just about, let's talk about what's coming up this week. Let's talk about our predictions, mad locks of the week. I don't want to do that. This Sunday. Yeah, I don't want to do that. The whole thing about it is talking about our love of sports, talking about just big sports stories, because there is a lot of drama that happens behind the scenes. There's a lot of stuff that happens on the field and on the court, that dramatic storylines. But for me, man, I just wanted to just sit down and rap about just what's going on in sports. When we were getting ready for the show, you posted out there that, hey, to the class of 1996. For those of you that don't know, that's how old Rod and I are. We are the class of 1996, not 2006, not 2016, 1996. That's how far back we went. We went to high school and we graduated. So you gave him a shout out, Rod. You said, we're going to talk about some stuff that these folks should jump in and listen to. So I'm going to pass the baton to you, man. What do you got, man? I want to know what's been percolating in your head, because obviously something's out there that you feel like you got to get off your chest.
Yeah, man. Now, of course, we'll talk about some other things, but yeah, this one particular thing was definitely burning within me, if you want to call it that. So last week, the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Did their enshrinement of the new class, right? To where I think they inducted the class of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And so that consisted of Tim Duncan.
Yep.
Well deserved. Kevin Garnett.
Yep. Well deserved.
Well deserved. And of course the late great Kobe Bryant. Yep. And so so that's where the tie into class of 1996 comes into play, right?
Okay.
And so, I'll be completely honest. I mean, I didn't watch the speech by Vanessa Bryant till last night.
Okay.
Because I was like, you know what, that's going to be kind of hard to look at. It's going to be kind of hard to swallow.
Sure.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we probably should. I think we probably should, because, I knew that we were going to get together and record this week at some point, sometime, due to the simple fact that the Hall of Fame speeches were last week.
Sure.
And so I didn't get a chance to watch Tim Duncan's. I'll probably look at that a little bit later on, but I did watch Kevin Garnett's. And also, I don't know if you like these guys, but if anybody gets a chance to watch All the Smoke with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, you definitely need to check them out, because they bring it in a pretty real fashion. I mean, just I mean, the podcast started about a year and a half ago, and of course they had Kobe on, and of course that was excellent conversation. And so they recently had Gilbert Arenas on, to where the whole thing about Kwame Brown, and we can get into that a little bit later on. Yeah.
Woo, boy. Yeah.
Yeah, let's catch that towards the end of the episode, Pat, because I definitely want to talk about that.
As our friend Raul Garza used to say, let's let that marinate for a little bit, guys.
We gotta let that marinate for a minute. Yeah,
we'll come back to Kwame Brown. Yeah.
Actually, Raul stole that from me, to be honest with you, but
that's
I'll
very true. That's very true. Yeah, the origins are with Rod, and then Raul decided to just go ahead and make it his own.
Right. So, because we were watching a whole bunch of Martin at that time. So
yeah.
So, anyways, back to the lecture at hand.
Sure.
But yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to the class of 1996, because just due to the simple fact that one of ours was immortalized in the basketball, Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. And the way that I see it, when one of us wins, we all win. When one of us, and I'm not doing no riding or nothing like that, so let's not get it twisted, but when all of us wins, when we all, when one of us succeeds, we all succeed, right?
Sure.
And so, when I look at just the speech that Vanessa Bryant did, what she said was expected, you know, but still it was a great speech, and it was really really moving, and she was very strong, extremely strong. I mean, of course, she got a little bit emotional towards the end, but she was, so once again she held herself up really really well, in which I give her props for that. But but back to Kobe. Um, he's been gone for over a year now, and we're still feeling the effects of his loss. Even a year later. I mean, you still see posts on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook that people, regular Joes like you and I, celebrities and the like, they miss having Kobe around, right? And so, uh, but back to the class of '96. Um, I said all that to say that there was absolute greatness that came out of our class. There was a lot of folks that we know about and a lot of folks that we don't know about that are not celebrities that have done a whole lot of things to make great impacts in their communities and in this world. And so, but Kobe Bryant, is the epitome of what we represent, right?
Sure.
Just a bunch of dogs, a bunch of go-getters, a bunch of, savages, if you want to call it that, in our professions. Wherever we call our professions, that was just our makeup. That's just our DNA. And I just felt, led to, just give some encouragement to all of us to, you know, to keep striving and to keep pushing, and to continue to excel in everything that we do. And it's not too late, if you still are dreaming to start that business, start it, and be great at it. If you have a business, expand and be great. Whatever your career is, don't stop at the level that you're at.
Yeah.
Excel and be great. Because I mean, once again, that's just the DNA of our class. We know people personally that have gone on to do great things. I mean, if you want to take a look at that year as a whole, probably one of the greatest professional draft classes that has ever graced sports, period, came out of 1996, and that was the NBA draft class of '96,
Yeah.
which included Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, and a host of others.
Well, hold on. You got to go down that list. Ray Allen was there.
Ray Allen. Come on, keep it going.
Jermaine O'Neal.
Right.
Antoine Walker had a good career. He made a ton of money that he ended up losing eventually.
Yeah.
Marcus Camby wasn't too bad. Kerry Kittle's not too bad. Tony Delk had a decent career. I mean, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, who was on those Cavs teams for a long time.
Big Z.
Big Z was there. I mean, man, like the 1990s, there was some really good drafts from 96, and I'm going to say all the way to 2000, there was some interesting drafts, because in 97, you had Tim Duncan, you had Tracy McGrady, you had Chauncey Billups, Keith Van Horn. Some of those guys had some good careers there. And I know I know you're sticking with strictly the class of 96, and I get that. To me, that era was our era. Those folks in that era were our era, whether they were in 96, 95, 97, 98. What you were talking about is the back end of Generation X. That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Basically, our generation came in before, before the millennial generation were ushered in. And I think, it's funny because with social media and all of the internet memes and jokes, the millennials get a bad rap because they think everybody, when you say the term millennial, when somebody's being sarcastic or being an a-hole on social media to try to put someone down and call them millennial, they're basically calling them kids. But people don't realize there's millennials out there that are about to hit 40 years old, guys, because we're 43 now, and we were on the back end of Generation X, which meant, like, my wife, who's just a shade under 3 years younger than me, she is technically Generation X, Generation Y, which is the millennial, right? So she's kind of teetering on both this, where they list the cutoff period. I mean, there's no real cut. I mean, it's just kind of silly here, you know? It's an unspoken rule, and I'm going to get to something about that later, trust me. I'm going to take a few folks in baseball to fucking task with that shit. So I get what you're saying, Rod. For me, like that whole era, probably to maybe 99, maybe even 2000, that was our generation of guys that were coming into the NBA and coming into sports. But basically, we were watching the aging 80s players. Like when we were kids, those guys, the Karl Malones, the John Stocktons, the Akeem Olajuwons, the David Robinsons, they were the generation before us, and they were slowly making their way out, you know, and these guys were going to become the new breed. And just see them, you know, thrive. Like the other one, Tim Duncan's speech. I loved it. I thought, you know, man, and is it okay if are you, I mean, go.
No, go for it. No.
I didn't know if you were done with your point, man.
Yeah, no, go for it, because I'm going to come in on the back end. So,
sure.
We're good, dude.
Okay. So, for me, I was a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Tim Duncan. I'm a huge fan of Greg Popovich. You're talking about, 17 years, 15, somewhere between, I think it's either 14 or 17. I can't remember exactly. Straight years, consecutive years for the Spurs to have 50-plus wins. That's ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
That is, you're talking about nearly 2 decades of consistency, you know, of just achieving a high level in the NBA every freaking year. And, you know, and I get it. They tanked that 1 year. They come back in a shortened season and they win the NBA title because, you know, they tanked and they were able to draft Tim Duncan, you know, to pair up with an aging David Robinson. But, you know, Tim Duncan's a part of our era. Those guys that are out there now, like Tracy McGrady, who had a really good stretch for a long time, but then he broke down at the back end of his career, and I hated to see that. I was very frustrated with that as a Rockets fan, because I really thought that there was that 1 year, and I think it was 2004, where they could have really gone all the way with the Rockets, you know, and they just couldn't put it all completely together, he and Yao. But Yao Ming was another one that was around that time as well. But like I'm talking about our generation that's out there now. These guys have left the league. They're also doing other things. And we're seeing it's kind of like what we're seeing with Beast Mode. You know, as he left and he came back into the NFL recently. But like he was the guy that had changed the whole concept of how they spend their money, you know. And a lot of these guys, like our generation, a lot of these athletes now are starting to really – while they were in the NBA, they really did a good job with investing their money, saving their money, and building on a future with their money, because the generation right before us, kind of in between those 80s and you know, in that, you know, the early 90s, those guys are starting to buy teams now, like A-Rod, you know, that he's trying to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves, which that's so weird to me that Alex Rodriguez is just it's just weird, but I think it's cool. And you and I talked about it on a sidebar, like the idea of these, you know, these athletes that are minorities in terms of like, you know, ethnically, that are going out there buying professional sports teams. I think it's cool. I think there needs to be more diversity in the ownership groups of these professional sports, because they obviously, especially with former athletes, are more relatable. But on top of that, we've seen the success of, you know, colored players that have left the league and have gone into executive roles and really thrived, like Ozzie Newsome did in the NFL for the Baltimore Ravens for so long, you know? He jumped in there as a GM, and we're seeing a lot of that happening now. And I think ownership needs to be that way as well, because I think it's a changing of the guard. It's a refreshing thing for me. There's a lot I don't like about Alex Rodriguez, but I respect the hustle, man. I respect the hustle of going out there and saying, I'm going to take a chance. I made a lot of money in sports, and I'm going to go ahead and get a group together and buy a professional sports team. I dig that. You know, I dig it. I saw this trend happening kind of in the late aughts, you know, the 2000s to 2010s, you know, the 2010 era. I kind of saw this happening when I learned that, you know, Jay-Z bought a part of the Brooklyn Nets, and I saw that, you know, that Nelly had a minority stake in the St. Louis Rams, right? Was it the Rams he had ownership stake in?
The Rams.
So I was like, okay, what we're seeing is a lot of these guys that grew up maybe with nothing are making a ton of money in their adult life, and they're investing it in some cool places, you know, into big business, like Dr. Dre, you know, opened up Beats and sold that for $4 billion to Apple, you know, stuff like that. It's really cool for me to see, because it just shows what I want is I want people of color, people like us to see, like children, to see that anything's possible. Not just, you know, because when we were kids, there was, you know, when you watch TV and you hear stories about getting out of the hood or getting out of poverty, a lot of the escape was in sports. I had to become a pro athlete to get out. Like that was the only real opportunity to get out and make a lot of money for a minority, and it just to see now, like to see these guys out there really thriving and doing different things in the business world, that makes me as a business guy happy, because that means to me, hey, they're going to go out there, and there's kids out there that see, okay, so basketball, picking up a basketball or a football isn't my only option to really get out of this struggle in life. I can do other things. Yeah, you can, man. You can. There's opportunity there, and I'm really happy that our generation, the professional athletes that were part of our generation, are starting to branch out and do that now in their 40s, to see the business opportunities and ventures they're jumping into. That's great. Back to what I really wanted to get to was the Hall of Fame speech. I was moved by what Vanessa had to say, and I know it took a lot of, restraint in terms of her emotions to get up there and to talk, in front of millions of people all over the country to watch this induction ceremony, and to just put it all out there. And of course, there's the whole thing about the Colorado stuff that really wasn't touched on, which I have to bring that up because every time there's always someone out there that whenever you talk about Kobe Bryant, there's always got to be an edgelord or someone that's always against the grain that has to bring this stuff up every time. And my feeling with that is that, for her, and this as a Christian man, forgiveness is a very powerful tool, and it's a very humbling thing as well. And maybe hopefully that's something that he lived with before he left this world, and he worked so hard to repair with his wife. But you could see there was genuine love between them,
Almost certainly, yeah.
And to see her up there to talk about him with love and reverence, and it was very emotional. It was a very emotional thing. Like you said, it took you a while to watch it. I watched it later than that night. I didn't watch it when it was aired, but I watched it later that night, and it just to see it was a very emotional thing, because it's so hard, because not only were we talking about Kobe, we're talking about her daughter, who was and how her daughter and her husband were so close, and to see them, just to know that they're both gone. She'll never get to, to live out her older, the rest of her adult life with her husband, to watch their children completely grow up, to watch one of her daughters to grow up is no longer she's never going to see that. The fact that their family was just cut in half tragically, and to be up there, I know it took a lot out of her to be up there. I know that, because if it was me, I know that would be a very emotionally draining thing. And so it was very moving, and to hear about his dedication, his love of the game. We over here talk about, we make jokes about how some of the younger generation of basketball players may not have it in them as much or whatever. And look, man, I'm not here to throw shade at athletes, because look, what they do is, professional athletes, it's a hard sport. It's a hard job. It's a hard life for them. I know I'd do it for free. Trust me, man. I think we all would, but still physically, it's a taxing job. You can go watch any of these athletes that are in their 40s and 50s now and watch how they walk after they've left the game. Professional sports, it wears on the body, it does. And so to be up there for them to be on the biggest stage in the world, watched by millions of people every night, and be criticized by so many people every night. I tip my hat to those folks to have to do this and are willing to do this for the love of the game. And Kobe was one of those. Tim Duncan was one of those. And to hear him tell the story about Greg Popovich, it's really cool, because, as a Rockets fan, I'm not a fan of the Spurs, but I am a fan of the Spurs because, damn it, man, they were such a well-run organization for those 2 decades, man. They were a gold standard, not just in the NBA, but in professional sports.
Professional sports, right. That's absolutely right.
And Tim Duncan was just a solid human being, Greg Popovich, a guy that wherever you stand politically, he was he was a man that he stood by his convictions, but he earned the respect of his players every time they would come in, no matter if it was somebody that there was a bit of a head case. They fell in line because they bought into it. They bought into what they were teaching there, what they were coaching there, and what their goals were. And hell, man, they won 5 NBA titles during that stretch, and I have nothing but respect for Greg Popovich for that. I have nothing but respect for Tim Duncan. Obviously, Popovich has nothing but respect for Tim Duncan because he missed out on a game that night to go to the ceremony to be there with Tim Duncan, and it just shows the commitment he has to his players, both active and when they've left the organization, or when they're not playing anymore. And to me, man, I remember watching that, thinking to myself, man, Tim Duncan, man, that guy has to be top 5 in the NBA for me all time. And I really had to think, you know what, man, I think he really is probably the top power forward in NBA history. I know some people out there say Karl Malone, and I'll go ahead and put it out there. I'm not a fan of Karl Malone at all. I think he's a piece of trash human being. If you don't know, go look it up. Go really do your research because of what he's done in his past with his, his quote unquote bastard children, how he's treated them and so forth. And to me, that's just a disgusting human being for him to do that. And the history behind one of those children while he was in college, and the mother was, a minor. And I think about all that stuff, and I think how, I'm not a huge fan of the Utah Jazz fans. I don't care. I cheer. I root for I don't root for them, but I'm all for the Utah Jazz players thriving and having successful careers. It's a sport, man. At the end of the day, it's a sport to me. Like, that's what it is. It's a distraction. But I see how the Utah Jazz fans treat other people, and I think it's despicable what they've done. There's a history of racism there. Just ask. You can ask multiple black players that have played in the league, both currently and in the past. They'll tell you that some of the stuff the fans do and they get away with is despicable. Not a fan of that at all. I think it's bush league for people to act like that in sport. Just in life, not just in sporting events, but at sporting events, but in life. Period. But I think Tim Duncan has to be over Karl Malone because not only was he consistent. I know Karl Malone scored a ton of points, but top 10 in rebounds, top 10 in blocks. The guy, he was just consistently one of the best players year in and year out. He may not have scored all the points that Karl Malone did, but he was consistent during the regular season. He played a ton of games during the regular season, and in the playoffs, he did what he had to win. He did what he had to lead. Karl Malone would score a shit ton of points in the playoffs, but he just couldn't get his team around him to rally around him. And I think a lot of that was, to me, it just felt like there was a lot of me with Karl Malone. And I'm sure, we'll probably hear about some documentary coming down the line years later that Karl Malone was a selfish a-hole or something. I wouldn't be shocked about it because just, to me, he's not a very good person. So I know that's a personal thing that I shouldn't count that when I'm talking about a pantheon of like great NBA players, but I can't help it because I think Karl Malone scored a ton of points. He's top 3 all-time in scoring in the NBA. But I look at Tim Duncan's resume, and there's just consistency. Consistency. Yeah, the Jazz were consistent during Stockton Malone's era in Utah. But I'm talking about Tim Duncan. Not only were the Spurs consistent, they won 5 titles during his tenure there. But on top of that, he just was a solid human being, an ambassador to the game, which – that's just that to me. When I put all of it together, I go, okay, well, I have to pick Tim Duncan over Karl Malone, But it's interesting because we're talking about the next class that'll be coming in next year. Ben Wallace, should he be a Hall of Famer? I don't really know, But when we talk about this, of course, when we talk about fringe players that should they be in or out, it opens up that whole Robert Horry discussion every time in the city of Houston. And I just have to roll my eyes because, yes, the guy won 7 NBA titles, but the guy his overall resume does not dictate a Hall of Fame career, guys. Oh, but he made some big shots. Yes, he made big shots. Well, he turned it on in the playoffs. I'm like, that's giving that excuse to me just invalidates your whole argument. You're basically saying the guy just snowbirded the entire regular season and decided to actually, show up at the playoffs. That's not Hall of Fame to me. Michael Jordan scored a shit ton of points in the playoffs, but he scored a shit ton of points in the regular season. And on top of all that, he damn near played, and if you remember, I showed you the stat, Rod. He played 80 games, like 9 of his 9 seasons in the NBA, 9 of his 15 in the NBA. He played 80 plus games. How many has LeBron played? I think I showed you 2 80 plus.
Yeah. I think only 2 seasons.
2 seasons of 80 plus, and I mean, and I don't want to compare who was greater, LeBron or MJ. That's just a whole silly argument because it's different eras. But what my point is that, like, just the consistency of some of these all-time greats to when you're creating a pantheon. There's a lot of stats and a lot of things you have to really put into there to say Robert Horry, okay, because he won he won 7, he won third most all time. I don't know, who is it? Bill Russell won the most. I mean, it's just crazy to me just to think about that. It's like wait, we're talking about Robert Horry, guys. We got to stop. But if we're talking about Ben Wallace and we're talking about Chris Bosh, it's like, all right, I guess we do have to, at this point, let Robert Horry in as well, But if we let Robert Horry in, we have to let Steve Kerr in as a player because Steve Kerr won 6 NBA, 6 or 5 or 6. I'm trying to think.
5.
5. He won 5 NBA titles, in his NBA career. Wait, he won 3 with the Bulls and he won
2 with the Spurs.
2 with the Spurs. I keep thinking he won 3 with the Spurs. He won 2 with the Spurs, though. Yeah. Hey, man, look, he won 5 NBA titles. That's a lot of titles, so Steve Kerr should be in as a player. He will be in as a coach, but should he be in as a player now? Because if we're saying Robert Horry's in with a career scoring average of 7.5 points and rebounding totals for his career of like 6?
And how many All-Pro teams has Robert Horry made?
0.
I can't remember, not 1.
0. How many All-Star teams has he made?
0.
So, look, I get it. We want to create this standard, this bar to add people in that are fan favorites. And I'm sure there are players on other teams that had really good careers for their teams, but were they really Hall of Fame material? I just, when I see the argument, maybe Paul Pierce should be in. I don't know. Like, he had a really good regular season run in his career, but he also had some good playoff runs as well. I wouldn't really think that. Okay, I could see him in. Yeah, I could see him in. But we're talking about
Pierce will get in.
We're talking about Ben Wallace. I'm like, he had a stretch of about 4 or 5 years where he was a really good one of the best defenders in the NBA and a really good rebounder. But it's like, yeah, but I mean, that's really I can't think. I can't do it. I can't do it. Rick Adelman won a lot of games because he coached a lot of seasons in the NBA, but he never did anything in the playoffs. And he never won an NBA title. Took the Kings to the conference finals a few times, twice I think. Yeah, once or twice. I don't really think so. Chris Webber, really good player, great player, pretty damn good Hall of Famer. I think our bar is starting to get a little lower.
It's starting to get lower
every year. It's starting to get lower, Rod. Like Tracy McGrady.
Yeah.
I'm like, he had a good run of about 7 years that were really, really good. Do I say he's a Hall of Famer?
Stat wise, he's fringe.
And of course, this to me, of course, we have this conversation. It's very subjective. I get it. But I don't know, man. I don't. To me, it's like I think we're lowering the bar to get people into the Hall of Fame. And I mean, realistically, there should be every year maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 at the most every year, if 4.
Yeah.
And we can never overlook the contributions to the game, to the because it's not the NBA Hall of Fame, it's the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. So we have to look at WNBA, we have to look at overseas, like Yao being admitted because of his role as an ambassador, bridging the gap between China and the NBA. I get that because it wasn't just about his NBA career. It was about because he had a really good career with the Shanghai Knights as well, over there in China. But he was a massive ambassador to the sport in China. I could understand that. We have a lot of WNBA. We have a lot of college women's basketball coaches to look at. I'm okay with that too. We talk about the women coaches and women players that played in the Olympics and play in the WNBA. Like at the most, maybe 3 or 4 a year should be in. And if you really can't reach it. I know, man. Am I being hypocritical because I'm thinking about this? Am I hypocritical, man? Because
no,
how I feel about the Baseball Hall of Fame, my feeling with that is, if they're a Hall of Famer, they're a Hall of Famer. If there shouldn't be first ballot, second ballot Hall of Famers. If they're a Hall of Famer, they're a Hall of Famer. So maybe my stance should be here. If they're a Hall of Famer, they're a Hall of Famer in the NBA. Okay, but I just think that we've lowered a bar here, in terms of like what is a Hall of Famer in the NBA. It's a little different than Major League Baseball, where baseball writers have already determined that player is Hall of Fame worthy, We're just not feeling he should be in on the first first vote, and I think that's crap.
Man, that could be I mean,
Another unspoken rule.
It's pure crap. Yeah,
a lot of unspoken rules about that, but circling all the way back because I've gone on a really long tangent here. Going back to the Hall of Fame class, I get where you're coming from, man. Class of '96. Shout out to everybody over there.
Yeah. And so just my whole deal was that greatness is in our DNA. I mean, we were just, born to be leaders. We were born to achieve great things and do great things, right? I mean, personally, the church that I go to, my pastor, he's class of '96, he's only just a couple months older. Well, yeah, 1 month older than you, 2 months older than me. And so, and so once again, there was a lot of just greatness that came out of that class. So, when Kobe went into the Hall of Fame, last week, I felt like a piece of us is just sitting in there as well too, because I honestly feel that when one of us succeeds, we all do, and so that's I guess that's just the motivator that's in me, that I just need to just say that, and a lot of times, and that's the reason why you love sports, because you can get so many life lessons out of sports. You can get so many motivating moments from sports, moments in sports that can motivate you to, to do great in whatever profession that you do, or whatever, personal, things that you have, or dreams that you want to get accomplished. Sports is a great way to find that motivation to be better. And so last week was just a reminder of, just the greatness that's in us. I mean, you look at Kobe, and when he retired from basketball, he wasn't done being great. He started his own media company, to where he winds up winning an Oscar, being the first pro basketball player, or I want to say professional sports player, period, to win an Oscar. Who does that? And so, I mean, Kevin Garnett, everybody, rags on him about, him yelling to the rafters at TD Garden, saying that anything's possible. Well, he's not lying. Anything is possible, and so, so yeah, so to make it even broader, you look at our generation, and you look at even, the class that was right before us, with Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett was probably one of the most, I would say he was very underrated, his whole career. I mean, everybody knew the intensity that he brought to the game, and that's what he's mostly known for. But I still think that, his game as a whole, was underrated. I mean, he was a high volume scorer early on in his career, and then of course as he got older, and you start to see those leadership qualities come out, to where he started to sacrifice some of his game for the betterment of the team, and he started to pick it up on defense, and be more of a leader in the locker room. And so you saw that when he went to Boston, right? And so yeah, just our generation. There's just, there's so much stuff that's in us, and there's so much more for us to get accomplished. And so I just wanted to put that shout out, to say, hey, look, we still got work to do. Yes, we're in our 40s, our early 40s, but we still got work to do, and we still got a lot of things to get accomplished. So let's just go out there and get it, man. Let's get it.
It's crazy to me to see some of these people, like players in pro sports from our generation of guys. Their kids are coming into the leagues now. Surtain, who else?
Yeah.
Who was the other cat that was drafted that was also an NBA kid? Part of our generation. Surtain, Patrick
man.
Surtain the second. I
Yeah,
think.
Patrick Surtain with the NFL.
But the thing is, like, Kenyon Martin Jr. is playing for the Houston
Yeah.
Rockets. Like,
Yeah.
and Kenyon's 44, 45. He's 44, I think. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, and we overlook some things. Like, Allen Iverson's, 41, 42 years old, I think. So,
Oh, no. He's
All right.
much older than that. I think he's like 45.
okay. I thought he was. Are you sure about that? Because he was very
Yeah.
young when he went into the NBA.
Yeah. He might be. He might be 44.
Oh, he's 45.
No, he's
Okay.
44, I believe.
He's
Yeah, he's
44.
44, dude.
Okay. But
Either
still,
44 or 45.
2 years older.
I know he's 2 years older than us. I know
Okay, well,
that.
I mean, he's still part of that whole window right there. You're talking about 95, 94, 95, 96, 94.
Yeah.
See these guys, like, just to see their kids jumping into pro sports now, it's so crazy to me. It's crazy. It's crazy to see that our generation have kids that are graduating high school, that have kids that are now, in college, going to college. Like your son, congratulations, by the way, your son graduated this past weekend. My niece
Thank you.
graduated as well, and she's headed out to the University of Houston. She had to really think about it, but she's going to be a Cougar now, going pre-med, It's crazy to think about what's it makes you feel a little old. I'm not going to lie, man. While I'm shaving the gray out of my beard, I'm like, God damn, man, like, really? Like, and I watch Kenyon Martin Jr. play, and I'm like, man, like, really? Like, he's 20 years old. Like, how old is Kenyon Martin? It's like, oh, he's 42. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, that guy's got a kid in the NBA, and he's younger than me, but he's around the same age. And it's like, man, like, oh, man, like, I just, I don't feel defeated because I don't feel old. I know I look it. Some days I feel a little older. Definitely my knees are in bad shape after all the surgeries. My knees are just clanky as hell. And some mornings it's rough to get up. I'm not gonna lie, but put on a few extra pounds. But it's not like I'm falling apart here, because I don't think I am. My wife may argue with that and say I am falling apart, but I don't think I'm falling apart. But man, just to think about, like, all right, we're getting closer to our mid-40s, Rod, and now we're seeing kids come in from parents that played sports in our generation. It's just mind-boggling to me, man. Like, it's just
It is.
it's crazy to me.
It is. And seeing last week, it was a humbling, sobering moment. Because it's like, yeah, you're reaching a almost in a sense a crossroads in your life.
Yeah.
To where, you got. I always tell people that when life starts to make sense when you crack 30. That's when you start to come out of that dumb phase. And you got a real good sense of where you're trying to go, a good sense of purpose, and that's when you really start to make those moves. Most average Joes like us, right? You start to make those moves, and then when you climb into your 40s. There's a laser focus, that hits you to where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm 10 years away from hitting 50. Shucks, I need to make sure that I'm make some things count. You start to think about legacy, especially if you're a family person. You start to think about your legacy. You start to think about, the generations that are coming after me. What are they going to say about me? How can I leave my imprint on the generations that are coming up after me? And so you start to have those thoughts and whatnot, and you start to have those ambitions to where it's like, yeah, man, time doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't waste it doesn't wait around for anybody.
Time
is undefeated.
Before the internet, the time has been long undefeated, long before the internet, And it's just crazy to think that. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because actually earlier today, my wife and I were sitting down. We were having kind of this rap about life, and talking about just growing older and just perspective. And you're right, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to me, because she asked me, because she's going through a major change in her life, and she's like, I really think that I want to be able to feel like I left my mark on the world. So what she's doing is changing her career and changing something major about her life, because she wants to be able to feel like she found a direction to be able to leave an impact to leave an imprint, to impact people, and that's I'm nothing but the best for her, and so. She asked me, do you think you got there yet? Do you think, I'm like, I don't really know. And she's like, well, do you know what it could be? I'm like, I don't really know yet. And maybe I did leave what I think is my imprint. Maybe I haven't yet. I don't know. I really haven't thought. For someone who thinks about, she goes, for someone who thinks about everything, that overanalyzes everything, you mean to tell me you haven't thought about this one thing, your imprint? And I'm like, no, I really haven't. I think it's mostly because it's for someone that struggled a lot with, in our younger lives, and then as I got through to college in my 20s and stuff, to struggle with finding out who I was, and there was a point where I just had to say, I had to really figure out, stop the way I was living, and say I need to figure out who I am, and that's probably a critical thing because when we get to by the time we got to 30, I knew who I was. I knew who I was individually. And then I got married at 29, and it was like, or just actually, I got married at 30, and it was time for me to figure out who I was in a relationship like that, because didn't have very many relationships. That's just not who I was. Very few of them. And, it was kind of an adapting process for me because I'm such a loner, and this, by nature, I'm such a loner, and I have very few friends, and, the few friends that I know that I do have know me, and they know that I'm a very different person. Rod, when he introduces me, tells people he's a little different because I am a little different. I'm a little weird. I'm not going to lie. And my wife knows that too. And so it's just, I get it, man. I get what you're saying because it's so funny you bring that up because that's something we were talking about today. And it just, it resonates because when you think about it from a sports perspective, so many of these cats are living their lives 150 miles an hour. In their 20s. Man. But it's harder. I can't understand and I can't relate because not only are they living at 150 miles an hour, but they're doing it while they're making tons of money. And they have tons of people, women everywhere, dropping everything for them, friends that are with their hands out everywhere, people that want to ask for, opportunities, give you even more money, want to take your money. Like I can only imagine how much of a psychological grind being a professional athlete at that age is. I'm not gonna lie, just because I watch how guys, I really recommend go watching The Dark Side of the Ring, the A&E biographies about the WWE, because professional wrestling, I know it's a weird niche performance art, but there's a lot of athleticism. It's not a sport, but there's athleticism involved, guys. But I think for those guys, it's a rough life because professional athletes, most of them they play or they practice 6 months of the year and they get a break. They get an extended break. Wrestlers don't. They do this 12 months out of the year, damn near 360 days a year. Maybe 300 out of 365 is how they work. And so to be out in front of people all the time, to have a public profile, I know it's a psychological grind. I can only imagine what professional athletes have to go through, man, because they're making tons of money. They go from having nothing to making millions of dollars. I could see it, but I just can't relate. So having to grow up, in front of the world, and then I get why some of these guys struggle so much. And then we find them in their 30s or in their 40s, and they've completely changed. They've become different people, and it's respectable, man. Just because I get it. When I was in my 20s, I had direction, but I didn't really know who I was. So I had to figure out who I was. It took me 6 years in my 20s to figure out who I was, and once I got there, I was probably the happiest I'd ever been. So I can only imagine what these guys, because it's a delayed process for those guys, because in their 20s, these guys are playing, they're working day in and day out. They're making a fortune, They have the world at their feet. They have a public profile. They're going to events. They're going to award shows. They're meeting other high-profile celebrities. I just could only imagine how it's so hard to really mature, And it's a struggle because are they really happy or are they really lonely? Because is it a lonely life to live, And some of these guys have a really hard time leaving the sport. After they leave the sport, they have a real hard time struggling, with their lives after the sport. So to see some of the guys of our generation making it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, making it into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and so many of the guys that are part of our generation actually having successful post-playing careers, it makes me happy. It makes me happy because it's like, okay, like I told you earlier, like kids watching can say, okay, I can do other things growing up, as a person of color or a minority, I can do other things outside of just saying my life is basketball and that's where I'm going to find my way and my success to live a good life, a healthy life, a wealthy life, or just a comfortable life is through pro sports. They can say, I can do other things now because, yeah, this guy played pro sports, but he also invested his money everywhere else, or he's a businessman now. It's like, okay, so as a Hispanic man that grew up in a poor area, I can go ahead and do this because there's an opportunity because these guys are breaking ground. It's really cool to see. I really like it.
And it's funny that you say that because you mentioned my son graduating high school last Friday, in which I mean, you talk about a proud papa moment, man. I mean,
I got to step in here, Rod, because we got to be frank about this whole thing. What stadium was it at? Where was the graduation?
Oh, yes. It was at the bounce house.
Okay. What were they serving at the bounce house at a high school graduation?
Now, this is the first time that I've ever been to a high school graduation in my entire lifetime. In the 43 years that I've been on this earth, this is the first time that I have attended a high school graduation where they served alcohol at the graduation.
Alcohol at the graduation. Come on, be frank, man. Was someone lit? Was there a mom out there lit?
Well,
there wasn't a
no. They weren't getting lit just yet. I think they were just getting started because there was a lady that walked in, and she had a tall boy of Coors Light in her hand, and I was like,
that's how Florida rolls. Yes.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about it, it was 10 in the morning. It was 10 in the freaking morning. I'm sitting here. I'm like,
5 o'clock somewhere.
Wow.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, man. That's how the
South.
Yeah.
And if my memory serves me right, I think my wife and my sister-in-law told me that down in the concourse they were also serving mimosas and all kinds of stuff. I'm sitting here. I'm like, you're kidding me. But.
Could you imagine being one of those dads that was like, I'm gonna go do some keg stands because like my son's coming up, but he's in the R's and we're barely at the H's, so I got time to go. I got time to go do 2 keg stands, right? They're sitting there like,
because my son crossed over early, man. Early in the alphabet.
Think about
right?
it.
So
what? Think about it. What if your last name was Zamora? And you're like,
oh man,
oh boy, you get there like they start with the A's, like, man, by the time we get to the C, but like by the time we get to the E's and F's, you're already lit. Like, man, we got long. I better pace myself, man, because by the time we get to the Q's, I'm gonna be past that. I'm gonna be throwing up in the bathroom,
Man, hey, look. So I told my daughter because she goes to the same high school and she's class of 2023, so she's not that far behind.
Yeah.
And so I told her a couple of things. They had suites available at available for rental. Sure. And so and if I would have known that, I probably would have ran a suite. So if they keep up in this,
let's get a luxury box ride.
What was that?
Let's get a luxury box in 23. Let's do this.
Oh yeah. Oh, most certainly, most certainly, and you're invited too, bro.
Nice. I'm gonna fly out to Orlando, guys. 2023. We're gonna rent a luxury box. We're gonna live it up like we're the owners of the Kansas City Chiefs, man. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, but anyways, I said all that to say this, that the valedictorian of my son's high school class said this, and I thought it was really profound, especially in these days and times, that he was like, for some of you, college may not be the route. You may find a trade and go to trade school or whatever. That's good. He's like, be the best person that you can be with that. Yep. Some of you may, wind up becoming great YouTubers or, gamers on Twitch or whatever. He's like, whatever it is that you decide to do, be well at it, and that was refreshing to hear, and so I was like, man, okay, yeah, interesting perspective, and so, it goes back to, what you just said just a few moments ago about, knowing who you are, and knowing what makes you happy and what gives you a sense of fulfillment and purpose, right? And so, So my whole thing with just, bringing up, the Hall of Fame and with class of 96 is, yes, we're reaching, points in our life to where, we're, really starting to make an imprint on society, but, my encouragement to everybody is we're not done. We're far from done. There's still a lot of greatness that's in us, and there's a lot of things that we can achieve, and we can take the examples that we get from, our favorite teams that we watch, and the favorite sports that we watch, and that we consume, and that we can find that inspiration, if you will,
Sure.
to be better people and to be great, And so that was just my whole that was really just my heart's desire to share that, man. So
Nice.
yeah,
I
yeah,
agree. I
yeah.
agree, man. I think we're just getting started. We're in our
And,
we're in our
that's
early
it, dude.
40s. But the best has yet to come.
That's
what
it, man.
That's how I feel. It's
Yes,
going to be
sir.
interesting because, like I said, we got someone that's closer to 50, like A-Rod, buying a professional team. But we're going to see some of these former athletes that are going to be going out in the business world. Tracy McGrady is an agent now. Crazy. What if he creates one of the biggest agencies in sports history?
Yeah.
Like, what if some of these guys just do some great things, like do some really amazing investments, and it's going to be our generation. These are guys that went in and out of pro sports, and they left their mark there, but they leave an even bigger imprint on society, and that's what I'm really hoping for.
Right.
And for folks, and you're right, and I'm going to go ahead and reiterate what Rod said. Like, we're in our early 40s. If you're listening to this podcast and you're our age or our generation, and you think it's too late, if you use that phrase at all, I'm going to tell you are dead wrong. It is never too late. It doesn't even have to be in our generation or class of 96. If you're 50 years old and you think I've missed out on so much because I've been focused on raising my kids, so I didn't really focus on me, I don't know what to do next, it's too late. It's never too late to take your chance. It's never too late to take your shot. At least take your
Shoot your
shot.
shot, man.
Shoot your
Yeah.
shot at some point in your life, because at least at the end of this game, when we're about to check out, at least you can say, I took my shot. That's what I
Right.
tell people. Always, don't be afraid to take your shot. Don't be afraid to take a chance. If you find something different in your life, make a pivot, because we all pivot. One thing is running a business that Rod's in tech, I'm in tech. I run a tech business, and one of the things I talk about with my team is, the folks that do may leave to go do something different. I'm sorry, but I just thought I had to take this opportunity because of X, Y, and Z. I'm like, look, man, if you feel like you got to take your shot, take your shot. Some of us pivot a few times. Sometimes we pivot our way back. We don't know, to where we were. But at least if you make a few pivots to do something different because you want to take a shot, you got to do it. You have to do it. Doesn't matter how old you are. And so for people that are our age in our 40s that are like, I didn't graduate college, or I regret not going to college, or it's not too late. It's never too late to do that. Well, I don't think I want to do college. I want to write a book. Well, it's too late. No, it's never too late. There are so many opportunities now. You want to start a podcast at this age? Well, look, I want to go stream video games, but I'm a 40-year-old now. Like, it's not too late, guys. It's never too late to try. It's never too late to take a chance. At least you get the opportunity at the end of it. If you succeed, or if you fail miserably, whatever happens at the end of it, you tell yourself, I took my shot. That's it. I took my shot. Whether it went in or not, it doesn't really matter. I took my shot, and I agree with you, man. Like, it's not too late to take your shot in life, to do something that you want to do, and whether it doesn't have to be something completely life altering. It could just be something you've wanted to try in your life. Go for it, man. Go for it.
That's right.
All right, man.
right.
Well, one thing I appreciate chatting about the Hall of Fame. I appreciate chatting about the class of '96. They get some love. So hopefully those folks that we know, that we grew up with, if you're listening to the show, this episode, we appreciate it. Much love to all of you guys. We had talked about, Rod and I had talked about holding a 25th anniversary reunion barbecue, a quasi 25. I don't think it's going to happen this year, Rod. I think with COVID and I think
COVID took care of that.
Took care of that. They put the kibosh. Maybe we did go outside the box here and do a 26 in 2022. You know,
I think so.
Why we got to keep
man.
it consistently at 25 and at 30? Like, why don't we just do something at 26 just because? 26 for 96. Let's call it that. 26 for 96.
You're on to something, sir. You're
like
on to
that,
something.
you know?
All right.
But guys, I appreciate you guys. Those of you that grew up with us that do listen to the show. Hey, man, much love.
Much love, man.
Hope see a lot of you have your kids out there graduating high school, going on to the next step, and it's great to see that.
Congratulations on that too.
Yeah. Rod, let's wrap this bad boy up. You got a parting shot tonight, man?
Actually, yes, I do. And the last couple of times that we've been on, either some type of rah kick or some type of solemn moment, and it's been like that for the last couple of episodes. But everybody that knows me, if I'm coming through a parting shot, man, it's gonna be something fairly goofy, right? So
Sure.
So parting shot for this episode is shout out to Houston's own Derek Lewis, who is a heavyweight in UFC.
Yep.
Right. He was he got his notoriety from a couple of years ago after he he won a fight to where he came back in great fashion. I mean, he got knocked down twice, and with his punching power, his right hand is so heavy, to where he wound up, it's that one shot, the one hitter quitter, and he wound up knocking out his opponent. I forgot who he fought, and he was interviewing Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan asked him a question, and he was saying that his balls was hot. So yeah, that Derek Lewis. So yeah, if you haven't seen that video, it's on YouTube. Go check it out. So Houston's own Derek Lewis. So where I was going with this was that there was an idiot in the Houston area that decided that it was a good idea to try to carjack Derek Lewis for whatever reason. And people do not know that UFC fighters are trained assassins for the most part. Their hands are weapons, right? So I said all that to say this, that the robber did not succeed at all because he got knocked out by Derek Lewis. So the guy tried to carjack Derek Lewis, and Derek Lewis gave him a one-hitter quitter. Yeah, and after that, HPD showed up, apprehended the guy, and took him on. But the cops didn't have to do much to apprehend the guy because Derek Lewis took care of most of it. So my parting shot is shout out to Derek Lewis for handling your business, man. You're still repping H-Town like you should, by defending what's yours, and I'm glad that you weren't hurt. I'm glad that the robber was hurt and that he's getting just due. So yeah, that's my parting shot, man.
Yeah, I hope he put it on ice because he broke something. I'm sure he did. He broke something. My turn. So I wanted to talk a little bit about baseball again. This concept, and it's been. I don't want to repeat this ad nauseum on this show, but this idea of unspoken rules of baseball, this nonsense has got to stop. It's clownish. It really is, because you know what? There's a reason why unspoken rules aren't written in the rule book, because they're stupid.
It's stupid. Yeah.
They're illogical and they're stupid. If someone hits a home run off of a pitcher, they can't show up the pitcher because then the pitcher has the right through unspoken rule to hit a batter. This is just ridiculous, okay? Tony La Russa, you have a legacy as being one of the most winning coaches in professional baseball. You've taken your teams to World Series, blah, 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 blah. You also don't know how to cut yourself off at the end of the night and call a cab, whatever. This thing where he is supporting and he's protecting the unspoken rules for a Yerman Mercedes. What he did the other day, it's just ridiculous. If you don't know, Tony La Russa is back in baseball, and he's coaching and he's managing, the Chicago White Sox. Yerman Mercedes, in a blowout win on a 3-0 pitch, swings heavy, knocks the ball in the bleachers, home run, right? Well, of course, the pitcher was pissed. The other team's pissed. Tony La Russa was pissed off. He took his player to task in front of the media. 1, that is a sign of really bad leadership. 2, which is your job, that was a really bad sign of management, because you keep calling him a young player. You're basically saying, he's going on record now saying, oh, he didn't know any better, he's young, he's clueless. The guy is 28 years old. He's not a child. Okay, Tony? He's not a child. Well, here's the other thing. You looked really bad to your team, to everyone on your roster, when you didn't get his back, because he's a professional athlete. He's doing a job that he's getting paid for. He's trying to be successful at that job to keep a spot on the team so he can keep building up towards a contract, more playing time, whatever, helping his team win. Okay, he wants to get better at his sport, right? But these unspoken rules in baseball, they damage the sport even further, and they continue to hold it back, making it still a distant third to the NFL and to the NBA. And they're going to remain a distant third with the NHL constantly on their back, because they have the best playoffs. Well, the sports, hockey does. This is going to be the case because baseball and their approach to the sport. Angel Hernandez, one of the worst coaches. Joe West, one of the worst officials. Angel Hernandez and Joe West, officials, some of the worst ones ever. That, balls that are like 3 feet outside of the strike zone. The other day I saw one from another guy that was literally an inch from the dirt and was called a third strike. It's like, we got to stop this, guys. This archaic sport, you could use a computerized system, a robot, to really call what really is a pitch within the strike zone. Oh, but that goes against the unspoken rules of baseball. We have a collective of crusty old men, writers, players, managers, and owners that can't get over themselves. And to see Tony La Russa not support his player, and to basically tell his team, you know what, I don't have your back because of unspoken rules. This is ridiculous. Just like any professional sport, I don't care about running up the sport. You know why? Because it's your fucking job to stop the other team. That's what you're paid to do. And if you can't stop them, from scoring, then if you can't do your job, then then we'll find someone else that can. That's really it. That's really it. That's what it boils down to. You're professional athletes. This isn't elementary school. This isn't Little League. This isn't junior high. This isn't high school. Hell, this isn't even college sports. This is professional sports. That's what they're paid to do. That's why they get top-of-the-line treatment. They play in top-of-the-line facilities. They travel around in top-of-the-line, accommodations, because they are professional athletes. It's a lot of money being thrown around. These guys are the top of every sport. They're at the top of their sport, actually. Do your job. If you can't do your job, oh well. That's how I feel with any sport, including baseball. And for baseball for these old crusty guys to hide behind the unspoken rule, it's ridiculous. To me, it's ridiculous. And, he's lost the locker room. Of course, they've had their struggles, Chicago. And so it looks like he might not even make it through his first season in Chicago, which I don't really care about, because obviously the evolution of the players have left Tony La Russa behind in baseball. And I'm not shocked to see that, because what I see from the guy this week to support the unspoken rules over his players, and all he has to basically say is, look, we're professional athletes. The Minnesota Twins, they're professional athletes. I can't help it if they can't stop us. Here's the other thing, is he's talking about, to cover his tracks now, saying, I didn't give the go sign for him to swing at that 3-0 pitch. I didn't give a go sign. I guarantee you, Alex Rodriguez ignored go signs in his career. I guarantee you, Mickey fucking Mantle ignored go signs. Babe Ruth didn't even bother looking at go signs. He was busy. Sign? He was busy chugging down, beers and smoking cigars between each at bat. While he was in the dugout, he probably was banging whores in the clubhouse between innings. I wouldn't doubt it. That's Babe fucking Ruth.
Right,
This
we'll
idea.
go check him.
Yeah, exactly right. So, for me, it's just silly for the, we're in 2021. We're talking about evolution in sports. Sports is changing. Sports is trying to get advanced. Health of players, like football, trying to, protect their players because of head injuries. So many things in technology really evolving sports. I'm so tired of baseball having to hide behind this unspoken rule concept. And to sit there and say it's okay for pitchers because you feel besmirched to throw at a batter and potentially injure them, to potentially hit somebody. Like if you hit somebody in the head, you're basically condoning, taking someone's head off, potentially like critically injuring them. Like this whole thing with the Astros, how last year, there was a large section of baseball that were like, and not just, I'm not talking about just players and coaches. I'm talking about commentators within national media, commentators in local sports, saying they support pitchers hitting Astros players. You're saying you're okay with
crap,
them
man.
intentionally
That was
trying
crap.
to injure someone. That's
Yeah, that
stupid.
was crap.
To me, that is wrong. That's stupid in sports. We have to be better than that, especially in this era of awareness with health. We're trying to be better with health, but it's okay because this is not about breaking the rules. This is about an unspoken rule. Rule.
It's crazy that pitcher can throw chin music, but if a batter,
if he flips the bat
swings at 3-0, and the add insult to injury goes yard on him.
Yep.
On 3-0.
Yep.
Oh,
technically and within the rules, there's nothing wrong with that because that's part of the game, right? But because we have a set of unspoken rules in baseball, it's wrong. He's immature. He's clueless. He's stupid because he's a 28-year-old rookie. He doesn't know any better. His fucking job is to hit home runs so he can stay in the majors because that's at 28 being a rookie, he obviously wants to do what he can to stay up in the big leagues, right? He wants to stay in the show. Yeah. So he's going to do what he got to do, right? I get that. I'm all right with Mercedes doing that. But then for his manager to say, call him clueless, call him, immature, and then when he was taken to task, he says, okay, well, you know what? I called the red light on that swing and he did it anyway. So that's to just kind of absolve himself from the whole situation, but then still call him clueless after that. It's poor. It's a poor evolution of that game. And I'm really tired of the unspoken rules of baseball. We've got to get rid of those things, guys, because not only does it affect the game that happens like live while we're watching it, we're condoning to a degree of players potentially hurting other players. On top of all that, we're talking about writers that say we're going to hold votes because someone's not a first ballot Hall of Famer because of the unspoken rules of baseball. Quit thinking these unspoken rules are good, because if they were good, they would be on fucking paper and they would be, signed off by the commissioner and the Players Association. But you know what? Right. They're not. You know why? Because they're stupid, guys. Get over yourself.
But you know what, Pat? There's hope, man, because Trevor Bauer made a statement, and Trevor Bauer is a prominent pitcher for doesn't he pitch for the Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
And so he made a statement about, hey, look, if I'm down 3-0, and somebody swings on 3-0, I'm not gonna get mad. I'm just gonna come right back, and try to strike out the next batter. Yeah. So what? Yeah. Keep it moving, And so,
just say the next time that batter comes up to the plate, you got to bean him to show him up. It's like, because he showed you up, it's like, no, you failed at your job, so why are you going to hurt the guy for being better at his job in that sequence than you? Right. Yeah, that's
but that's an unwritten rule.
Rule.
Yeah, because if a pitcher doesn't, if a guy shows up a pitcher and the pitcher doesn't retaliate, then he's going to hear it in the clubhouse, which I think is crap, but and it's ruining such a beautiful game. I mean, baseball is a beautiful sport, man.
It's a beautiful sport, Rod, but they have to stop turning their nose to everyone else, because yes, we're the oldest sport in America. We're America. You're not America's game. You haven't been America's game for the last damn near 20 years. I'm going to go ahead and say it. That's been the NFL. Okay? You haven't been the top sport, and you won't be the top sport anytime soon because it's going to be the NFL until injuries or head injuries shut it down, whatever. Even then, the NBA is still a powerhouse because of the global impact. Baseball, crusty old baseball people prefer their little enclosed environment because they think they're better than everybody, and they turn their nose up to other sports and to everyone else, and that's a reason why you're a distant third baseball. People like Tony La Russa that sit there and they act like the unspoken rules are more important than the actual players and the game itself because those rules have to be protected. Get over yourselves, guys.
Get over yourself, right?
Rod, it's been a pleasure as always, man. It has.
Likewise. So, for those of you that follow the show, of course, if you agree with what we said, if you don't agree with what we said, our handles are right here on. I guess I'm pointing the right side.
Other way.
Other way. Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, it's all over here. Yeah. Oh, other side. Yeah. So, it's Cap Casualties, in just about every single platform, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch. And so yeah, if you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, if you just want to chop it up and, slide in the DMs and talk sports. I mean, now, we're talking about, these social media handles, not our own personal social media handles. No, you can't slide in DMs like that. I mean, both of us are married. We would get, we'd probably get, severely chastised if we were talking about that. So we're not talking about that. But yeah, if there's anything that you want to chop it up with us, there's something you agree with or something you disagree with, we would love to hear what you have to say, and maybe at some point, we'll turn the chat on and address, live statements or live questions or whatever the case may be, and go from there. But we would love to hear from y'all.
Thank you very much for listening. As always, appreciate the support, appreciate the commentary, appreciate the back and forth, guys. Everyone stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll catch you on the flip.
Peace.